Hi, William here again. Thank you for joining me for this week's project video. Now, in September last year I did quite a long video on the subject of wood turning incorporating Shou Sugi Ban or Yakasugi, which involves the charring of wood. Now, Shou Sugi Ban is a technique that's been employed in Japan for many millennia, and it's done to preserve wood. Now, some wood turners have employed this technique not for preservation but for aesthetic reasons, and I guess the most famous one that we would all know would be Max Brosi. But more recently, Pat Carroll, also an extremely accomplished turner, produced an article in the August copy of Woodturner magazine. Now, when I did my last project video a year ago, it wasn't that successful in that both the bowls that I produced both cracked during the charring process. Now, I did get a lot of feedback from viewers on the video, which gave some useful tips, but also I've gleaned a lot of information from Pat's article in the Woodturner magazine. So in this project video then, I'm going to try and follow Pat's instructions to produce a Shou Sugi Ban or Yakasugi vase, but incorporating one or two other tips that I received as feedback. Now, in Pat's article he does use green cypress. I don't have any green cypress available to me, and I didn't last time. The wood that I do have is showing about 15% moisture, which isn't very much. Now, the wood being too dry could be one of the contributing factors as to why my last two projects both split. Pat has suggested to me to dampen the wood down before I do the charring process. So that's one of the changes that I'm going to make to Pat's instructions that he gave in the magazine article.
Okay, the first task then is to find the centres of the log that I found in my log pile, put it between centres and rough it to about 4.5–5 inches in diameter. Now, I'm doing the charring outside for safety, of course, but before I attack it with the blowtorch, I'm going to dampen down the piece with water as suggested by Pat Carroll.
Hi, a quick pause here. In the intervening period between the colouring and now, I was at the Yandles show for 2 days, manning the Yorkshire grit stand. Now, I was co-located with Martin Saban Smith, Hampshire Sheen products of course, and I discovered this. This is Hampshire Sheen glow in the dark embellishing wax paste. Now, I'm going to take a slight change in direction with this project. I was going to finish this piece with some traditional wax once the colouring was dry and after a bit of sanding, but I've decided to try and incorporate some of this.
Now here I'm carrying out Pat's instructions and cleaning some of the excess carbon off with a wire brush. In fact, this is a suede shoe brush from Amazon. When I've done this, I'm going to try and even up the charring effect by giving it a second burn. Having given it a second clean with the wire brush, I'm now reaching for my intrinsic colour, burnt orange. Now this is a bit of a deviation from Pat's instructions, as Pat achieved his colour, I believe, through using a brown wax polish. Once the wood stain had dried, I cleaned the entire piece using some methylated spirits or denatured alcohol. Notice I have not undertaken any abrasive work with this, the charring and the wire brush having smoothed things out quite neatly, and also I want to leave a lot of open grain to capture this glow in the dark waxed paste. Once I've finished applying the glow in the dark wax, I did decide to throw caution to the wind and use the hot air gun method to make sure that all the voids were filled. Now, having achieved quite a good finish on the outside of the piece, I now have to turn to my Simon Hope easy arm hollowing jig to excavate the vase. Spent only a few minutes with that 6mm cutter. I can now swap it out for the scraping tool to get a good finish on the inside. Now, as you may have noticed, having left the project on the lathe for a couple of days, is that it has moved, and this has resulted in an eccentric rim. Okay, so there we have it. Didn't work out exactly as I'd intended, and I guess we have to wait till it gets dark tonight to see how good the glow in the dark effect is. So what went wrong? Well, first of all, there's the concentric rim caused by the fact I abandoned the project for 2.5 days while the Yandel show was on, and the penalty of that is, of course, that it moved. Okay, so I did deviate from Pat Carroll's instructions here and there. Significantly, I did finish the outside before I did the hollowing. This was an attempt to stop it cracking, which happened to me before. Now this worked okay, but because I'd left it for a couple of days in the workshop on the lathe in the warm, I did get some hairline cracks, but I'm hoping that they've been filled with the glow-in-the-dark effect polish. Now apart from that, I'm quite pleased with the colour effect. I did discuss this with Martin Saban-Smith at Yandel show, and we concluded that burnt orange would in fact be a good colour, and he wasn't wrong as usual. Okay, thanks very much for watching, and hope to see you again next week. Now I can clearly see the glow in the dark effect with the naked eye, but couldn't capture it on my cheap video. The open tin here, you can see in the image, clearly shows the glow in the dark effect.